And amidst all the news of how coronavirus has spread across the world, there's one country that, given its size and location, seems to have been left relatively unscathed, and that's Russia. Our Moscow correspondent, Diana Magne, has been looking at why that might be and whether the appearance of having things under control might be an illusion.
The number of cases in Russia ticks up, most of them in Moscow, most of them Russian citizens coming back from Italy. But for the biggest country in the world, with a long border with China, it's still surprisingly low.
I think the government doesn't want people to panic, because people will then start queuing in Russian shops to buy buckwheat. That's why they're trying maybe to hide the real numbers.
Moscow acted fast to try and contain the spread, imposing strict self-isolation requirements for almost 2 weeks now on anyone coming in from affected countries. There are now 3 call centres like this fielding calls from anxious travellers, though the UK is still not on the mandatory quarantine list. Sofia Voznaya and her family arrived back from Germany a few days ago.
Today was the first day when we make a video call with the teacher, because the teacher is in the same situation as we are.
Voznaya is an animator, and she's documenting her family's experience in self-isolation. They can take the garbage out, wearing face masks, but their every move is monitored by Moscow's dense network of surveillance cameras, with the threat of hefty fines, even jail time for those who break their quarantine. This place, Moscow Infectious Diseases Clinic No. 1, has more the feel of a prison than a hospital. We happen across a tourist from Hong Kong who was brought here and kept for 10 days, he says, even though he had no symptoms. But he does say that he was treated well. As Moscow's premier hospital against infectious diseases, this place doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Moscow's mayor is keen to give the impression that they have the situation under control. They're following up with all the contacts of those who've been hospitalised and those who are showing symptoms. But the stories that we're hearing from people inside paint a pretty different picture. These pictures from 2 weeks ago of unsanitary conditions. Patients supposedly in quarantine, sharing facilities and kept in the same room together. This new hospital on Moscow's outskirts is the new go-to spot for patients with suspected Covid-19, and work is beginning on another prefabricated hospital complex for if the virus spreads. But if this photo is anything to go by, quarantine here is grim too. I asked the chief infectious diseases specialist to the presidential administration if he's sure about the numbers.
It's easy to check because right now we don't have any rise in respiratory infections or in pneumonia.
But the Alliance for Doctors, aligned with the political opposition, say their doctors are reporting back that that's simply not true.
He contacted us and told us that from 5 departments they made one big department for patients with pneumonia. So patients with pneumonia after surgery, patients with pneumonia from flu, all ended up in the same department. The Ministry of Health ordered all pneumonia patients to be brought to 3 hospitals. So first they bring everyone to one place, and only after that do they check if they have coronavirus or not.
No health authority knows the numbers for sure. They just know they're likely to grow. Winter passed Moscow by this year. Barring miracles, the coronavirus most likely won't. Diana Magne, Sky News, Moscow.